James, I hear this a lot from creators, whether they be writers or directors, others, complaining about whatever their project is budgeted for. And I have no appetite for it. It is, well, if we had the budget of that show, sure, I could do this. And I'm like, those people have the same problems we do. Yep. You know, oh, if I had Rings of Power budget, I could really get something done. Could you? If you can't play in the sandbox you're given, whatever that is, and create beauty and create art, I question your ability to do more with more.
This is the Act One podcast. I'm your host, James Duke. Thanks for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a good review. My guests today are Andrew Peterson and Chris Wall. They're the creators of the hit new animated show, The WINGFEATHER SAGA. Andrew Peterson is a recording artist, songwriter, producer, filmmaker, and the award-winning author of the WINGFEATHER Saga book series. His music has garnered 3 separate Dove Award nominations, and in 2008, driven by a desire to cultivate strong Christian arts community, Andrew founded a non-profit arts organization called The Rabbit Room, which hosts concerts and conferences and has published over 30 books to date. Chris Wall is the executive producer and showrunner of the WINGFEATHER Saga animated series. Before creating Shining Owl Productions in 2016 to develop and produce family content with an entertainment-first strategy, Chris spent over a decade collaborating with industry leaders at Dreamworks Animation and Big Idea, producing the direct-to-video VEGGIETALES animated movies. He is also the creator of the acclaimed SLUGS and Bugs Show with Brentwood Studios and RightNow Media. The WINGFEATHER Saga animated series chronicles the adventures of the Igiby family as they discover secrets, flee the evil Fangs of Dang, seek their place in the world, and make a stand against the mysterious ruler Gnag the Nameless. They will need their special gifts and all the love of their noble mother and ex-pirate grandfather to survive the venomous fangs, sea dragons, flabbits, and toothy cows. The show is available through Angel Studios, and to watch the entire first season, just go to angel.com or download the Angel Studios app. Both Andrew and Chris are thoughtful artists who have created something wholly original and entertaining for the entire family. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Chris and Andrew, welcome to the Act One podcast. It's a pleasure to have both of you on today.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Glad to meet with you.
I've been looking forward to this. We were just chatting beforehand and just telling how much of a fan I've become of the project, your show, and I've been watching it kind of develop over the past couple of years, and just really impressed with what it's become and the response. And I just wanted to spend some time talking to you guys about it. I wonder if we could just start with the actual story itself. So we're talking about the WINGFEATHER Saga, and this is a series of novels that was written by you, Andrew. And if for someone who's listening to this podcast and they have no idea, could you just give a quick pitch? What is the WINGFEATHER Saga and what's it about?
Oh man, Chris knows this. I always squirm when I get the elevator pitch. I always think about Flannery O'Connor. Somebody asked her what one of her stories was about, and she said, well, if I could tell you, I wouldn't have had to write the story, which I'm not going to be nearly as snarky as Flannery. But I will just say it is a 4-book epic fantasy that I wrote because I grew up reading fantasy. I've always loved it. And once I had my own kids, I realized that it was kind of hard to find really good stuff to read as a family. Like we read the Narnia books and some N.D. Wilson books. I feel like, Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, but we kind of reached this point where I was like, why aren't there more of these kinds of stories? And I think really reading the Narnia books to them allowed kind of reawaken in me this desire to try to write something, which I'd wanted to do since I was in high school. And so, so I just sat down and started building a world and wanted to tell a big sweeping story that would make my kids think that I'm cool. So that's the WINGFEATHER Saga. As far as what it's about,
do they think you're cool? Do they think you're cool? That's the question.
Here's the crazy thing. I think it worked. I think they do think that I'm cool.
That's rare, my friend. My kids Yeah, not so much.
Yeah, all you have to do is write a 4-book fantasy series.
And so also too, for those that I'm sure I will have some people on the podcast that listen that are big Andrew Peterson fans from back in the day. Andrew, I think my first introduction to you was in college, and
Wow.
I bought one of your first albums. And so you're also a very accomplished musician and singer-songwriter. And I'm just curious, for those of us who know your music and are fans of your music, obviously you were, as a lyricist, you were still very much of a storyteller. So it feels like this was kind of always a part of you as a creative artist. No?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I've always loved words and stories, and a lot of my singer-songwriter stuff. I was never writing. How do I put it? I was a big fan of Paul Simon and Rich Mullins and James Taylor, like the kind of bard singer-songwriters who all, you could tell there was a literary kind of aspect to a lot of their work. At the same time, it was very folky and earthy, and so I was really drawn to that in all three of those guys, and the music that I still love. So yeah, so there was the world of novels and literature and the world of singer-songwriter stuff that I love. It all kind of inhabits the same galaxy, I guess I could say. So I like it all, and each one feeds the other.
Is your process similar at all, from writing a song to writing a novel? I'm curious as in terms of when you sit down to write, whether it's a song or a novel, what are the similarities and differences in your process? I like to nerd out with some nerd writing questions and stuff like this, because we have so many writers that listen to the podcast, and I'm just curious about your process in particular. Yeah,
well, the quick answer is that there are ways in which they could not be less similar. Like writing a song and writing a book are just vastly different things. Mm-hmm. Like I think of songwriting as track and book writing as cross country. It's like they're both running, but they're very, very different disciplines, right? Yeah. You're aiming for something different. So the songwriting is like you can, it's a craft that you work on for years and years and years, but it is feasible for you to late one night write a whole song, mm-hmm. and then play it for somebody to show tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So the inception of the thing to the completion and when I say the completion of it, the moment when you share it with someone is when the work of art is, I think, complete. That can be relatively short. Some songs take way longer than that. Whereas book writing is just head down, like running a marathon. It's boring, it's just this long slog. And the crazy thing is, you don't know if it's any good for like 2 years, yeah. Doing this huge thing, pouring yourself into it, and you don't know if it's worth the time until you finish. I mean, it is worth it because, in my opinion, the real thing that's being written when you're writing a story is you, not the book. Like, yeah. There is something that is shaping you in the process of trying and failing, and the self-discipline, all the stuff that goes into it. So even if the book flops, it's made something of you, right? So that's encouraging. But the things that are similar, there are real similarities in the kind of arc of the creative process. It's condensed with songwriting, but I think whether you're a painter or a screenwriter or a filmmaker or a songwriter, you start with this flash of inspiration, this like real, like your pulse quickens, you think, I'm going to do this thing. And then you get into it and you hit walls and you think, I'm the worst songwriter in the world, I'm going to quit. Why would anybody bother? And then you wake up the next morning and you slog through. And John Hendricks is this illustrator who has a great graphic of this. It shows the arc, and it's like the peak of inspiration, then the valley of despair when you think you're never going to finish. And then the completion of the thing is different than what you thought it would be. And it's a little less than the initiating vision. You can never quite get it to where you thought it would be, right? But that pattern, I think, I would bet that every creative person, whether you're a carpenter or a painter, that all kind of fits to me. Yeah. So I think that the discipline of being a songwriter for several years taught me to not be surprised by the valley of despair, right? Yeah. Like, because you're in the valley doesn't mean it's time to quit. It might mean that it's time to like put on your gloves and keep fighting for it. And so whenever I kind of bounced over on my days off from songwriting to start working on the book, and I encountered those obstacles, I recognized them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't imagine. I've never met any writer who has truly been satisfied with their work. There's all, I worry about the ones who think they've written something amazing. I'm like, okay,
yes,
all right.
That's so true.
Chris, for you, okay, so Chris, you're the showrunner and one of the executive producers of the show. And tell people how you got connected to, so I'm assuming you read the books and became a fan, and whose crazy idea was it to turn this into an animated TV show?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just met Andrew a few minutes ago. He seems lovely. Yeah. We had a very awkward meeting because I did meet him through his music first. And I was producing VEGGIETALES at the time. And I had gotten a copy of this kids CD that he and Randall Goodgame had created called SLUGS and Bugs and Lullabies. And it was these really cute, silly songs that they'd written for their kids. And my wife and I just loved it, thought they were delightful. And so we were in a position where Mike Naraki, who had written all the silly songs for VEGGIETALES, was working on the Pirates movie and just didn't have any space for writing a silly song. And so I reached out to Andrew and said, hey, man, I know you and Randall respected songwriters in town. Would you ever consider coming and writing a silly song for VEGGIETALES? Like, it's a little like, you could say no and I'd be fine with it, right?
Yeah, right.
My surprise and delight, Andrew's like, that sounds like a blast. Let's do it. So he and Randall came and pitched a couple songs that ended up in, I think we did 3 in different VEGGIETALES movies. And in the middle of that journey, walked up to me with the first book and it says, hey, so I wrote a novel. You want to check it out? And it is that weird moment when you meet someone who's multidisciplinary, where unfortunately, I think the immediate reaction is distrust.
Right.
This won't be any good.
Right. Oh, great. You thought, oh, great. Yeah.
My oh, great was, shoot, I'm going to see him again. And I'm going to have to tell him to his face if I read it or not. And if I liked it, and you're just like, oh. It's like, Andrew, I know, I'm sure for you, it's somebody, hey, I got a song you got to play for you. And you're like, oh, now this gets weird. And,
conversation.
What was the outcome that you thought would happen here? Yeah. Anyways, so
it's funny you should say that. I'm going to whip out my guitar right now. I've got something.
Exactly. Or you're pitching me on a show idea you've got. So anyways, I did go read it we have 6 children, and I read it with my older 3, and just had a blast with that first book. And it reminded me of Narnia, like kind of the Lewis kind of winsome, but it was fun. And we were like, that was great. Let's see what happens. So I then got to kind of read along as a dad over the years and got to know Andrew even more. And at various times he would reach out and, hey, I got somebody ask me about taking these and adapting them to this or that. And what do you think? And this guy looks pretty good. Ooh, I wouldn't talk to those guys. I don't think they're, and I was at Big Idea, then part of Dreamworks, and just kind of all that running. And Andrew pitched a couple times. Would Dreamworks ever think about taking this and doing some of the WINGFEATHER? And they just weren't in a position where they were looking at anything outside. It was like they had just got the classic media library, and it was like they've got their hands full with trying to develop all this IP, and I don't think they have an appetite for it. And anyways, so but I just fell in love with the stories, and so by the end of the 4th book in 2014, was just so swept up in it, and was a part of the Kickstarter, to make that 4th book, and all of that. Then in 2015 came to the end of my time with VEGGIETALES. So after 20 something years, it was all right. We're done with our direct to video kind of movie business, and had a real fork in the road for me of, hey, do you want to come to LA and keep producing at DreamWorks, or do you want to go to something else? And so I opted to go to something else. And that was after a long walk with Andrew on his property, saying, all right, what if we did what you were saying? What if we went after this thing? What I had immediate skepticism was, hey, I have most of my careers in animation. I had done live action and kind of came up as an editor, then a director of photography, and then eventually producing. But I said, I feel like I could bring the most value if it was an animated project. What do you think? And Andrew was like, well, Avatar Airbender was a huge success. It's kind of a serialized narrative over, beginning, middle, and end. I think that's a great target. And I'm like, okay. So then I told him, it was fall of 15, well, I think we should test it with the audience, because they really may have Lord of the Rings live action in their brain. And if we show up with animation, they might just revolt. And Andrew was like, well, we should do a Kickstarter. And I was like, oh, Kickstarter, really? I don't know. To do a little short film and kind of test this out. And so then early 16, that was our first official big step, was let's go try that to develop it. And it worked. And we had a wildly successful Kickstarter. The audience was Andrew had done such a great job of cultivating that fan base that they were ready to just jump and see what they could do with this thing they love so much. And we started a little company, early 16, called Shining Isle Productions, just Andrew and myself. And I had made that decision early that I wanted to partner with Andrew to make sure that the DNA of this story stayed true. I found the story to be so nuanced in its balance of winsome and epic. And I was worried that we'd lose the sauce if I just did a traditional deal of option the rights and go do something with the team, even if he was having an outside voice into it. I was like, I need you in the sauce. And so that was kind of a question on both sides. One, Andrew, are you willing to be in the sauce? And yes, he was very collaborative. And then secondly, am I willing to take the risk that he's not going to capitulate like crazy and be like the worst author ever, right? And it's been, I can tell you sitting here right now, James, at the end of season 1, and we're deep into season 2, Andrew's a fantastic collaborator and has been just wonderful at saying yes to new ideas, and also saying no in the right places to this has got to stay true to what this moment is meant to be. But I think I just have to say there's emotional clarity of what this moment is meant to be. How that moment transpires, the scaffolding, the moments it takes to get to that moment can shift, right? The specific plot, the specific actions that are taken, as long as the emotional center is accurate. And that was the thing that I was most after, and he ended up being most after as well. And it was so freeing for all of the development and the adaptation of the writing that would come after, to know that if we both agree this is the emotional moment I want to experience, and I had such a powerful experience reading the books that I also wanted those, right? I was like, I want to have the same tear and leap of joy and the heartbreak of this loss, and I want to have all that same stuff. So because we're aligned on that, I think sometimes producers coming in to adapt a material can be like, I like this, but I didn't love that moment. I thought it could be better. You're doomed, right? You're out on the scaffolding. You're breaking with your audience. Like, you've got to be aligned. And I think one of the reasons I felt really strongly about coming in is because I was so aligned with what he was giving us. Yeah. Story experience in the novels, and just wanted to see, could we make similar experiences in this other medium to get us going.
That's great. I'm curious, as your process of reading that first novel and going, I see episodes. And for you, at the beginning, because I know you guys created a room and you have other writers on the project and things like that, but that very beginning, when you guys are first talking about making this an animated TV show, I'm curious, as your look, because the whole 4-book arc and everything going on, did it just flow right? Oh, well, this is episode 1, this is episode 4. Or was it a bit of a battle of, wait, we've got to save this for later? I'm just curious, kind of the early conversations. Did you really know where you were going with the episodes? Did you know you were going to do the episodes you were at first? Were you like, oh, we're going to do 12 episodes or 15 or 4? I'm just curious, the inside baseball, even with just the two of you at first, trying to adapt a novel. Because this is maybe to the bigger question about adapting a novel, but adapting a novel to the screen as an episodic TV show. Maybe what are some of the conversations and challenges you guys had at first?
Well, I have to tell you, yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say really quick before you go, Chris has way more insight into this because he's kind of the ringleader, knows how to gather everybody together. But I will say that one of the things that you didn't mention, that is a very valid constraint, is not just how do we adapt to the book, but how do we adapt it to the budget that we have. Right. It's we've got this much money, it costs this much to make an episode. How in the world do we make it a satisfying experience in that way too? So it's not just the adaptation of the material; it's conforming it to the tools that you have at your disposal.
Yeah,
and I totally missed this in my recap, but we vacillated between television,
to feature.
So think I have no shame in saying I am a slow learner. I'm slow to ideas. I'm slow to so part of my journey is being afraid to wield the showrunner title. I'm not a screenwriter. I can do it. I don't like my screenwriting and don't want to discipline myself to make it better. And so before we got into this, actually, there was a masterclass with Shonda Rhimes that just was golden to me because it was freeing to understand a way in which all my writing rooms had always been as a producer. I can map out story beats. I can understand structure. I can map out, episodes and seasons like that. But when it comes down to, it's really the dialogue. I get so it's funny, even Andrew, to this day, like, do you remember at the end of episode 6, I had that little snippet of dialogue for Poto. I wrote that little snippet and I was scared to death to give it to you because I'm like, I just can't write. It's Andrew. I mean, he's brilliant. This is going to be awful. And so when you were like, yes, I like it, I was like, yes. I hate writing. So I had to kind of get comfortable with how would we do this? And in that, so Jacob and Kenny, Jacob Roman, Fire Eisen, and Kenny showed up as a writing duo that we had worked with at DreamWorks on some VEGGIETALES stuff, been introduced to them out of Biola's writing program, and they did some great stuff with the Veggie. And so we reached out to them on the short film as our writers. And we said, hey, we want to just start the process. Here's a scope of what that could be. So we chunked that off. Like, here's one way. And then I think, Andrew, we did talk about the episodes for season 1. You go like, is it 13 episodes? Because that's like a half order. Like, you just kind of have to use what's our sandbox? I don't know. It could be this. Okay, well, what would we do in 13? I think you were pretty clear about half-hour experiences, Andrew. That was like, we weren't going to do them as 11s, right? We weren't going to do hour-long, probably, and the books are structured that way too, that was one of the things Andrew talks about is writing shorter chapters. So as parents for read alouds, you're not reading Lord of the Rings. I did that. It was really tough.
Hard, yeah.
And so we knew half-hour experience is probably the best option. So, but then in the middle of that, James, we realized television has limited places to go where the distributors don't take it all and own everything. So all your streamers, that had happened whilst we were working on this together, is that the streamers pivoted to acquiring all IP. And suddenly you're just being hired to make your own project with a 20% profit. And it was like, wait, that's not right. And that was kind of some of our journey.
I vividly remember you calling me and saying, something just occurred to me. Like you were just like wrestling with the model for how to do this. And you were just like, I don't think it's a good idea to go that route.
After we'd pitched them 3 times, like after we'd really banged on the doors.
Hollywood like 3 times. Yeah, it was a lot of work.
We were from Henson to Amazon, multiple approaches, to Netflix, multiple approaches, to Paramount. Which, by the way, did you see the Ninja Turtle trailer, Andrew?
Yeah, I did.
So we pitched hard at Paramount with Murray over there with our short. And they were like, oh, this paint motion style looks really great, but we're not sure. And this new Ninja Turtle is totally our style. Just saying. That was back in 2018 when we were pitching that thing really hard. So 5 years later, they're doing exactly what we said. We were just arguing for the CG animation glut was going to occur and how could we get away from it. And so we were interested in the creation of the series to pivot both not only the story itself, but also the way it would be told, like the way you would experience it. And so anyways, after the TV debacle, we pivoted over to feature. And we're like, what if it was a series of feature films? So then we restructured the stories to satisfy that. And that had different story map, right? And we'd map that out to 5 films for the 4 books.
Oh, wow.
Kind of like Harry Potter style, where the last book is quite thick. Well, I mean, I have it right here. The last book is easily double the length. And so we were like, well, what if we did 5 films? So we shot that for a while.
By the way, can I interject? I just got an email today saying that the Korean translation of the books is about to happen and that they've decided to split book 4 into 2 books because it would be over 1,000 pages long.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to try to come up with like a title for what book 5 would be so that War King could be book 6.
And make sure that audiences don't expect that you've written a book 5.
Yeah.
The word's going to get out that book 5 is exclusively available in Korea.
Yeah.
So we got to take a couple whacks at that story format, James. So then in 2021, so we abandoned the feature market after 2020 and cinema was closed. And it was like, okay, independent feature is definitely an uphill battle. We should rethink. About that time, got introduced to Angel Studios. So I think a lot of ways, sometimes your formatting and staging is dictated by what can the, as Andrew said, the budget and the shape of the vehicle support, right? And I think I was honestly, I don't know, Andrew, if you ever felt this, but when Netflix would say, when we talked with them, well, how many episodes should it be? Right? What do you think? Kind of their mantra for so long. They're like eschewing the broadcast standards of 13s and 26s. That was actually intimidating for me because I was like, well, give me something.
Yeah. It's nice to have a structure that you're trying. A frame is great. It's like songwriting is way easier when you're like, this needs to be between 3 and 4 minutes long. Yeah. I've got to say what I got to say here. But if somebody says, no, right, the song can be as long as you want, which I guess this is true. It's constricting to not have any boundaries.
Yeah. Taylor Swift just demonstrated that it could be possible. So I don't know. So anyway, so it ended up with, that became a fixed thing. So we knew exactly we could only raise $5 million through this regulated crowdfund mechanism. Okay. With $5 million, if the target of what we're trying to hit is Dragon Prince, a Troll Hunters kind of territory of action adventure, those type of action adventures are budgeted between $650 to $1 million per half hour. Okay, so we think we could do 6 episodes. So it's quite rough. So I know that doesn't sound altogether interesting or sexy, but it's like, that's all we needed. Just give me the blunt. Okay, 6 episodes. Yeah. All right, everybody. What could 6 episodes be? What are the key things we'd want to do? And this is where the writing room really stepped in. I had an idea of what those 6 episodes should contain, which was to go from book 1 into part of book 2. It was actually following what we'd mapped out for the feature. And Kenny particularly came battling back and like, no, we should do it all in book 1. Here's why. And they mapped out what it could look like to that ending. And so then we just drove against that. And then it was, okay, well, now we're into the deeper machine, right? Now it's into, okay, well, if the character journey is here, what's your midpoint episode? What is in episode 3 that makes it interesting? Okay, well, then how does that pay off here? You start building. For me, it's always like put the big rocks in. Yeah. What are the big things we know we have to get to. We know we're going to end it. Okay, so how do we get to here, to here, to here? Okay, now start digging into the narrative tissue of how your characters are going to work, when you're doing a multi-season serialized narrative. The other opportunity we had, of course, is we could pull things forward because I have all 4 books in front of us. So I could say, well, we know at the same time in the world, this was happening over here. Why don't we expand the audience's view from a series standpoint to know, there's greater evil or good happening in other places? Does that help us to give a sense of the broad world? I think, Andrew, you said this. The first book is just hang on for it because book 2 opens the world so large. Like it's a simple journey kind of, and then it becomes this epic journey as the books unfold. And so we wanted to go ahead and insert some of that epic into the TV series, the sense of, there is bigger stakes at play that maybe the books don't tell you, but we want to go ahead and give you. Is that fair, Andrew? I think
I think that's fair.
I love the idea of using the books as constraints for your storytelling. I think that we don't talk about this enough, I think, as creative artists. And I think curious if you could speak on this, either one of you, the idea of, I think constraints are necessary in the creative process. It's important for creative artists to have structure, to have deadlines, as we say. Like there is something about that writing. And I would think that knowing how things end, knowing how certain things resolve early on, and then being able to plan accordingly, they provide their own unique challenges of kind of maybe how you want to get there. But at the same time, I would think that there's also a freeing aspect to it. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how to add to that other than to say, yeah. It really is. It's just like I'm standing so close to the painting because it was my story in the beginning that sometimes it's hard for me to see, its own flaws. There have been several times in this process where, when you have a team of really good screenwriters in a room and story artists and all these people, and Chris knows story really well, scrutinizing every page of this book that you wrote. They're going to find holes, things that I as the author did not even notice. And you go through like rounds and rounds of edits, and the books have been read by people, and there are things that we notice that nobody else has before, little holes in the story. And so when that happens, the way I've described it is, it's like telling the story in this frame, having somebody kind of go, we've got to visually tell the story, and we're going to move the camera over here and tell it in a different way. I remember vividly, one of my favorite moments in this process was sitting in the writer's room at the end of the week, after they had kind of mapped out all of season 1, and they pitched the whole thing to us. And it was, I don't know, it was an hour and a half of them just standing up there saying, this is what happens, and giving us the beats of the story. And when it was over, I remember I got a lump in my throat. I was like on the verge of tears, because it was so moving to see the same story, only all the bolts are tightened a little tighter, and like we're experiencing it like a more distilled version of the same story. So some of the extra stuff that makes a book wonderful kind of got shaved away, and we boiled it all down to something. So I was telling somebody that it felt like the WINGFEATHER Saga separated itself from me and from the books and moved a little closer to its platonic form. Like the essence of the story was what was left in that moment. And man, what an amazing thing. Like, so all that to say, it's the only way to get there is constraints. It's like, we've got to figure out how to tell this. We can't get into the main character's head. We've got to show what he's thinking. How do we do that differently? And these necessary changes actually made the story tighter to me.
Yeah. And I just think that young writers, young artists need to, there's always kind of this resistance at first. I want the freedom to, and it's like, yeah, I understand that. But at the same time, embrace the constraints. Like you were saying, even towards the very beginning, there's a very real world dynamic to storytelling with finances and budgets. And by the way, just time is finite. You can't just keep going on and on and on. And so use that to your advantage as an artist. Use it to your advantage. Your constraints, they can actually be tools rather than burdens.
Yeah, and I get, James, I hear this a lot from creators, whether they be writers or directors, others, complaining about whatever their project is budgeted for, and I have no appetite for it. It is well, if we had the budget of that show, sure, I could do this. And I'm like, those people have the same problems we do. Yep. If I had Rings of Power budget, I could really get something done. Could you? If you can't play in the sandbox you're given, whatever that is, and create beauty and create art, I question your ability to do more with more. And I have always really enjoyed being a producer who rallies around a team to say, here's all the sand you have available to you. Yes, there's a box on this sandbox, and there's a limit. And yes, the people over here have a bigger sandbox because they're building something else. But let's pay attention to what we have, and let's play at the edges. Let's find our best version of this that fits in here. Let's not overwrought and try to make something that is not in our box, because you'll just look like a pale comparison. Don't try to be a Mercedes when you're budgeted for a Kia. It comes off that way. Scare yourself a little, bite off a little more than you can chew. We scared ourselves real good with episodes 5 and 6 of season 1 and knew that would challenge us, but in a healthy way, and I think after having done this for a few years, like I've learned a few things, right? My mentor in this space, Chris Cuser, who I worked with at Dreamworks, had been on development with Shrek and How to Train Your Dragon and just all these Puss in Boots too. And he was really key on, I have some ideas that are worth even thinking twice about. Most of my ideas are not. Early in my career, I thought every one of my ideas was great and should be put into practice. Budget be damned. We'll find more money, right? And it's not that way. The discipline of saying this. And I also think I've seen plenty of creators complain about a budget constraint or other things like that because they lack the confidence to go in there, to just make the brushstroke and commit to it and just know that's what it is. And I told our team early on, I said, hey, we're season 1, there's a lot of pressure. These books are powerful and they're growing like crazy. Audiences love them. We could totally faceplant here. by trying to be 100% of what the books are. We cannot be. We have to be comfortable that if we could hit 80% across all our disciplines, if the writing can be 80% of what Andrew wrote, if the animation can be 80% of that, the background and the visuals can be 80%, if the music can be 80% of that, we win. Yeah. If we all strain for 100%, we're all going to not like each other when we're done. And I don't think the craft will be any better per se for the audience. Like, and it's the classic story of, as we're talking right here, if you're distracted by a small piece of something in the background of my image right now, you probably hate the conversation. Like, I've lost you. And so if we have a tripping hazard of some visual or some bit of animation or some story thread, then you're probably not in the story zone anyways. Like, I haven't caught you with my magic. And so we have other problems. But if I've caught you with the magic, I don't care if I'm on a ukulele around a fire or I'm rocking your face out at Wimbledon. Like, it's what am I doing? Right. Yeah. And I hear people cry about their inabilities and constraints in ways that I just never believe. I'm like, do some. And I was inspired early on coming on to VEGGIETALES because Phil and Mike did that. There were two kids in college who found a way to thrill audiences with puppets.
Yeah.
And the limitation of puppets, is so, like, you're in front of a bunch of kids and adults, and you got to figure out how to make this work. Well, that discipline happens to translate into little spheres of a cucumber and a tomato doing the same bits, right? And talk about constraints. I mean, Veggies was full of constraints. No arms or legs, people.
No arms or legs, yeah.
Come on.
I would say, just really quick to add on to that, like, another helpful way that I think about it is, as a singer-songwriter, I've been the opening act for a lot of shows early in my career. And when you're out on tour with a band, it's you and a guitar usually when you're the opening act, and they've got the light show and they've got the drummer and they've got the whole thing. And it's okay to think, gosh, one of these days I'd love to have a full band. I'd love to do a full band show. But tonight it's me and a guitar, and I've got to find a way to win over the audience with 20 minutes or 4 songs with me and a guitar. And the cool thing about it is, how many shows have you been to where the guy comes out with just a guitar and the audience is pulling for him, right? They're kind of like, oh, look at that guy. He's out there. He's giving it all he has. He's completely exposed. So it can't, like, this thing that you see as a weakness is actually a strength. It's actually a thing that it's an ace in the hole, And so I think that's kind of like what we were doing. We were thinking, we're not going to pretend like we're not going to do a bunch of, like, foot pedal stuff and play to tracks to trick people into thinking that we're a full band. No, we're not a full band. We're the guy on the stage with an acoustic guitar, and that can also be great. And I think that's kind of how we approach this thing.
I am so impressed with the show. It does not, to be clear, I understand, following the analogy, you're thinking budget wise that you're just going to make the best, you're not making $100 million film. So in that sense, you're out there with a guitar. But I want to make it clear to people who are interested in watching the show. Watching the show, this is a fantastic show, and you guys should be congratulated. It doesn't feel like a solo guy with a guitar. It's a full band, it's a full orchestra type show, and I think that the animation in particular is beautiful. And I just wanted to talk about that just for you touched on it just a little bit, and so my thought on the show is there is a and man, I hope this doesn't come across as a negative, because I realize as soon as I start to say it, I thought, oh no, but I mean this. There's a quaintness. There's a quaintness to the animation that it's evocative, and it pulls you in. I don't know how to explain it other than there's a richness to it that because anyway. Before I continue to pretend like I know what I'm talking more about animation, when clearly I don't, can you, Chris, explain this new type of animation or different types? It feels like a hybrid between traditional 2D animation and new computer-generated animation, and it's got this really cool effect to it. What style of animation is it, and why did you guys decide to go in that direction?
Well, I just got to zoom back to say the books were the footing for that. So the books, Andrew does this wonderful job that somewhere in the room here with me is a big map. And so Andrew started by putting a map together for Wingfeather that was like, okay, there's a real world, real history. And when you read the books, there's these footnotes to those other histories. So there's a groundedness that there's something happening. Well, in a world of animation, Hayao Miyazaki does that, right? Yeah. Where he indicates things in their worlds that are like, what's that history? Don't know, but it's interesting. So there's always things beyond the edges of the lens, right? That the audience is invited to participate imaginatively. Modern computer photoreal imagery does not invite that same participation. Pixar's Lightyear, it's all right there. We've told you everything. Mm-hmm. You understand? Traditional 2D invited that a lot. Bambi just swashes a color. Your brain goes, there's a forest over there, right? So there's a lot of people that talk about being inspired by Miyazaki and other things, but they just lack the discipline to commit to it. And we ran into that as we started working on this Viz development, which was everybody wants what Pixar's given them. We're only taking Pixar. Now, thankfully, after our short film came out and we tested those by pushing the boundary of this kind of hand-painted, painterly style that does, for me, it takes me back to like Secret of Nim, a certain like, that's not Disney, but it's cool. Like, what is that? So you're right. The quaint kind of, there's something old and new about it. It's a weird thing. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, after we came out, Spider-Man Spider-Verse showed up. Yep. Right. And everybody went, okay, maybe we've done this too long. And then now we've seen, of course, Bad Guys did a little bit, and then Puss in Boots 2 did more, Mitchell's versus Machines, the new Ninja Turtles coming out. Like they're all saying, okay, what else could we do? And it's great. So now we're of the moment. In 17, we were early and like everybody's like, whoa, slow your roll. But it was driven by this desire to not do Pixar on the cheap. So that's been done a bunch. And it always looks the same, right?
Which is kind of what I'm getting at with the acoustic guitar thing. It's like, we're not going to pretend like we've got a full band. Yeah.
Which is kind of like, Andrew, you've been to shows like this, right? Where a guy gets up with a guitar, but then pushes buttons to make a full orchestra. And it just feels like, nah, dude, you don't have the full kit, man.
James Taylor doesn't need any of those bells and whistles. He can get up there and play Sweet Baby James and he's got you. You know what I mean?
So because the storytelling was off the page, we wanted the visual storytelling to try to get to the same space where hopefully we're inviting the audience to imaginate with us. And that was something that Keith Lango, who's our animation CG super, all of this is his sauce. Like it was something that he'd been working on. He's one of these really wonderful animation philosophers that animation is not done, that we can still discover more ways to do this craft, right? And everybody kind of got cul-de-saced by Pixar. All good things, but we kind of stopped there once computers came in. And it was like, well, the apex of that is just basically a Marvel movie, right? Like there's no, what are we doing that's distinguished? And now there's this like, let's let animation be animation. Let's let it do what it is, whether it's a computer or 2D or something in between like we're doing. And so Keith really had championed that for, decades, honestly. And that was the first meeting. Andrew and I were talking about this. I said, hey, we got to go get Keith. And we sat down. Keith, would you be interested in helping us to develop this? And he became a core guy with us here at Shining Isle to not only bring this great story, but to bring it forward in an interesting way. The craft of how we do it.
And how many animators work on the show?
Season 1, we had, I think like a team of, I think it grew to about 16. We had like a core staff of like a dozen. And then we kind of in surge mode, you go, we need some extra guys to jump on. Okay. Maybe 16 or 18.
Well, one of the things that I appreciate about the show is, and I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to go negative here, but there's a lot of, but in comparison, I just want to say one of the struggles that I have with what is often referred to as, Christian or faith-based entertainment or something like that is, there's not necessarily a whimsy to it. There's not a wonder to it. And many times it's not compelling. I don't understand the need to, if I'm being forced into a church van because someone bought tickets for me and they're forcing me to go and watch it. What I find, here's what's great about the Wingfeather Saga. It is compelling. From the moment you turn it on, it is compelling. The animation is compelling. The storytelling is compelling. The characters are compelling. There's a warmth that it exudes. There's a fun. There's a jovialness, and to me, that what speaks. It just and I'll summarize all that by saying it's original. It has something new to say, and it's old ground that's been treaded because, like you said, Andrew, you were inspired in your childhood, and I mean, there's definitely elements of Lewis and Tolkien and all this kind of stuff in it, but it's its own fresh new thing, and that is more compelling to me, and that is more compelling to a typical audience than someone telling me, "Oh, this has something that you have to watch or have to participate in." And I just want to congratulate you guys on creating something fresh and original that it's a joy to watch. And I'm really looking forward to seeing, the future seasons unravel. I'm curious, do you anticipate maybe you don't have it all worked out yet, but is it going to be a 4-season show? Are you expanding it? What are your thoughts?
Well, we thank you for saying that, by the way, James. That's very
Yeah.
encouraging to hear. Very kind of you. As a side note, I was laughing while you were talking about kind of feeling like you've boarded a church van. One of the things that I say often in the, we have this app called Frame where we can make notes on the animatics and stuff as they come through, and I will say in all caps, no teachable moments, no teachable moments, like. Get rid of the teachable moments. And that may sound surprising to someone listening, but like as soon like the kid I'm a pastor's kid. So I'm very aware of that moment when the spell is broken because somebody's saying, now here's the reason why we're watching this show, as if a great story isn't reason enough, And so anytime we kind of err toward that, I want to just be like, no, like what would someone actually say in this moment? They're not going to stop and open a Bible. So
it's the mystery, right, Andrew? It's the mystery. The mystery draws the audience in deeper, not the knowing that I'm not the I have to brush my teeth because if I don't, my teeth will rot. Like just hearing some sort of didactic, this is the truth, you have to, right? But instead it's the mystery of these characters and the journey that they're going on and the unanswered questions that draws us in. And especially even for kids, as kids, when your imagination runs wild, the idea that my imagination, I can carry these stories and these characters far further than even you can as the original writer.
And the thing is, the cool thing to me is that sometimes a story does demand that you tell the truth.
Sure, of course.
Stories do teach, but the story gets to be the boss of that. You don't. You know what I mean? So like you have to like if it is right now in the story, and I think episode 6 does that. There's a moment at the end of episode 6 where it's like there is a truth that kind of lands, but it's like we earned the moment to be able to tell that truth well. And so as a friend of mine says, the stories aren't overtly Christian, they're deeply Christian. And I would rather be deeply Christian any day. So the answer to your, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Yeah, just that if you're trying to capture an 8 to 12-year-old kid, right? You cannot capture them with obligatory watching. You can't capture them with ought tos. The only reason VeggieTales ever worked was because it was actually funny and it was actually good music. And if it didn't earn that, the kids have the remote. That's right. And they will change. I don't care if grandma or mom and dad aspirationally want them to hear this truth through this disguised scaffolding Trojan horse of new. No. Is it good? Does it work? If it doesn't stand on its own. So for me, the real litmus test is, and thank you for all that you said, it really is genuinely meaningful, but also not my primary audience. Like for me, it is, do I have 8 to 12-year-old kids approaching me going, when does this happen? And are there little heads in the world when they talk to me? And if they are, then we've done our job. If it's mom and dad, thanks for the good show. I gave him his vitamin. I kept that chocolate away from him. You're like, nah, we lost. We lost. We're not winning as entertainers. We're not winning as storytellers. And so I just, and we have struggled, to Andrew's point, with the Christian label. It has been the hardest thing to get away from. We were told by the CCM side of the industry yeah, the fantasy elements and there's no God in the world, we're dead on it. It makes us uncomfortable. And lizards are definitely of Satan. And then on the secular side, it was this guy, Andrew, he wrote Resurrection Letters and Behold the Lamb. Yeah, he's totally trying to pull one over on us. He's just proselytizing, other bad names. And we were like, no, it's just a good story. That just happens to be our worldview. And the term Christian fantasy is something we just had to fight and say, no, we're a fantasy series. And I often will be, it's a kick-ass fantasy series, just to kind of shed that, just like, don't try to make us that other thing. Now, you're going to absolutely understand the Christian ethic and the redemptive, deeper meanings if we're doing our job. But that is just imbued in the story. And that's very, very, very hard in this world, James. I have worked with countless writers who can write really good secular scripts. And I've worked with countless writers who can write really milquetoast, on the nose, religious stuff. Yeah. And finding the balance in years of VEGGIETALES writing was that. Like, we'd find people that religion and their spiritual lives were completely pandering. Like, they just couldn't write it authentically. And finding a way to let that just be in your story, it was so hard. And so when you find writers that can get it and also write with and obviously they're able to lift, in this case, from Andrew's great writing, right, where that's kind of effortlessly woven in. That has been a tough part of our journey on distribution and on the writing side. It's funny how it hit us on many sides.
Yeah.
So go ahead. So I was just going to say, the short answer to your question is we're planning 7 seasons.
Oh, wow.
That was how this whole thing started. Yeah.
That's exciting. Okay. That's very exciting. I'll get you guys out with this, but or maybe I'll sneak in a few more questions, but I think one of the bigger, one of the things that we're kind of beating around the bush talking about here is this idea of theme and subtext. And that one of the things that obviously the books are laced with, and the show is laced with, is this idea. One of the things that we teach at Act 1 is you don't write to theme. Theme is something that emerges from the writing, and you can see when people write to theme, you can see it coming a mile away. In fact, there's so much more of even whatever you want to call it, secular, whatever non-faith-based stuff that's now being written to theme, that it's just so heavy-handed.
Oh, yeah. And we don't like it, right? We don't like it foisted back on us.
No.
If we agree with the perspective of that, when it's coming at us, you're like, whoa, I got it. Stop doing the thing. Oh, you're doing the thing.
I always cringe when people say that, like, the problem with Christian art is that there's this agenda. And I want to be like, oh my goodness, it's not just Christian art. Like, how many times do you go to a movie and you're just getting beaten over the head by a thing? And it's like, please, can you just tell me a story?
Just tell me a story. That's exactly right. Just tell me. Yeah. Yep. And that's exactly right. And I think that one of the things that once again, I go back to this word compelling, that the reason what makes the show, one of the things to me that makes the show compelling is I can sit down and I can pull out deeper themes to talk to my kids about. I can pull out because there's just so much subtext there. And I'm curious, just because the themes are so buried so deeply in the source material, I'm curious, Chris, the conversations in the writer's room, are there times when you guys go, hey, it would be great to flesh this? I'm just curious, when it comes to the deeper themes of the show, do you guys discuss that at all in the writer's room in terms of, are we missing the mark here? Or to kind of our greater point we were saying earlier, no, let's just tell the story. And maybe the theme that we thought was more compelling in the book ends up maybe not becoming as compelling. Maybe another theme comes out. Like, I'm just curious in terms of in the writer's room, what do you guys talk about? Because you have a source material that you're working from. Yeah,
I think that there absolutely is. You have to have a North Star of, like, what are we trying to accomplish in our emotional targets for the season, right? Over the long haul. And so season 1 was a family coming together and discovering true identities, right? Season 2, a family having discovered identities being broken apart, right? And so there's those themes. Those aren't themes you're going to put on a bumper sticker on your car to evangelize, right? You're not going to distill it down to actionable lessons, but thematically, yes. Now, how those emerge and how those get unpacked between characters, between scenes, between episodes, we enjoyed having it organic and kind of let it find its way. And you'd get a draft and go, wow, this is cool. And you'd also find gaps where you get like, man, I don't understand at all what's happening thematically with this character. Like the journey that this character's on has gotten completely stunted here by episode 4. How do we recover that? What do we do wrong? How do we, so, and then I think the other thing is, and this is a discipline that we always have to work for in the television format, is you can only do so many things, right? And there's like 6 or 8 different literature can introduce so many nuances and spurious ideas and references that are poetically and prose and things that we can't do. Well, we shouldn't try to do. I think a lot of times in the faith community, you find that they throw just everything in. And you're like, I don't know what was the story here. There's like 7 different things happening. They're all good, but there's so many of them that I don't know what to pay attention to. And so I think one of the things we had to be disciplined to in the adaptation is winnowing down to, this is what we're going to drive at, and try to, I love that thing and that thing and that thing, but we got to stay here. I think if we, and again, zooming back, we did a short film, and in the short film, we got to test some things and go, wow, we gave them too much info. Right. So that proved to be really valuable as like a little test piece. And I know Andrew was watching it. We learned like stuff that kids and adults just didn't catch. So just why did we introduce it? Better to leave it off, Yeah.
Well, my answer to the theme question is, I think theme is okay if you become aware of it as you're going. But the first draft of a book, like when you're writing a novel, and songwriting is kind of this way too, that's when you should try not to be thinking about it. You should be thinking, what is the next awesome thing that could happen right here? And what would a person really say here? And how is this story going to unfold? When you get to the end of the first draft and you go back and you look over the whole thing, that's when you go, oh, wow, I didn't even realize that this little plant was growing up here. This little vegetable popped up. And you're like, oh, those are the good things that you had to discover. And then you can go back and weave into the beginning of the story, foreshadowing and little moments in the characters that do make sure that those things land in the right way. So it's not like we're allergic to the idea that there are themes in a story. I think I am allergic to the idea of starting there.
Yeah. Right. I like that. I completely agree. And in fact, we teach I think the Pixar process is they do a theme pass. So it's like you write the script, everyone comes back, they read the script, and everyone talks about what emerged from that first draft. And then if there's a couple of core things that emerged for the majority of people, then it's like, okay, let's go back now and see if we can find more ways to layer in those and do like a theme pass. I'm curious about the whole Angel Studios experience. So obviously people are going to be like, hey, how do I find this show? How do I watch this show? And Chris and Andrew refuse to work with Netflix. I'm just kidding. No, but you guys decided to go with Angel Studios, and that's where people can find it, so they can download the app or angelstudios.com. What was the process? Why did you guys decide to go with Angel Studios?
Andrew, do you want to say for your part of it? Because I think it's really important.
I'm not sure exactly what you're getting at, but I would say it was the realization that if we were to partner with any of the other big streaming services, that we would lose control of the story.
Yeah,
we felt I would rather there not be a Wingfeather Saga animated series than there to be one that broke the story.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I don't feel comfortable just handing the keys over to somebody. So. And then along comes, and we'd kind of reached a point where we were like, we're not sure what to do next. And then we met the Angel Studios guys, and their whole model is complete creative control. We want you guys to make the show what you want to. They don't own the IP. We would have had to sign the IP over to anybody else that we would have partnered with. And so there was a whole bunch of creative freedom in going with them. And then, but then that, the cost that comes with is, well, we got to find the money.
Right. And how has the process been working with them so far?
Chris? Fantastic. Yeah. And I think it's one where you got to know, they know their lane. They're great distributors and marketers, right? And they're like, we trust that you've done the job of curating a community of fans. It's kind of their whole model.
Yeah.
And you want to be faithful to those fans. And so you're the best one to do it. and you have economical, reasons to do that, right? That if it works, those fans are going to reward you with success. And so they feel like that creator to community relationship is the thing. And if they can fan that into flame, what you have nurtured and brought up, which Andrew had done, and then together we've done more of that, then we'll take it from there and continue to fan and develop and grow. And provided, some vehicle for us to be able to reach to a larger group of people to tell them about helping us financially to invest in our company to go, achieve these goals, which that journey has been fantastic and just a bit overwhelming at times at how beautiful it is. I think we're over 10,000 investors that have invested in the series.
Wow.
Own a part of our company. They literally have, units in Toothy Cow Productions, and we on their goodwill have gone and made season 1, and now season 2 is underway. So, and then we hand that show over, and Angel co-owns the show with us, and goes and develops all the pieces, right? So whatever ancillary product we're going to make with that, it's all part of that arrangement, and it's great.
Really great to work with. Yeah.
Well, congratulations to both of you. It's a fantastic show. I hope everybody that's listening to this watches it. It's for the whole family. Little kids, there's some intense moments, but I think that it's nothing any more intense than you would see in a lot of other common stuff out today. But it's fantastic, and you guys should be very proud of what you've done. I'm genuinely looking forward to future seasons, and my kids are too. And I think that what you've done is you've created something good, like something good. And Andrew, I don't know, did you partially the world building? That's the part that makes me. Do you have a deeper appreciation for Tolkien creating entire languages now?
Very, very much so. Yeah. Like all the great ones, like you just kind of like are in awe of their ability to hold a whole story in their mind and do the thing. It is a really astonishing thing. I feel like I'm just ropes on the Goodyear blimp, as they said about Bob. I'm just like kind of astonished by it. But I would say the same thing for the whole process of filmmaking and making this show. I had no idea what I was asking of Chris when I said, "Hey, you want to make an animated series?" I had no idea. And like, here we are pushing 7 years later, we're chasing this thing down. And like Chris has worked so hard, and I just have kind of stood on the sidelines trying to be a cheerleader. And it's just a lot harder than anybody realizes to do this. And so I'm grateful for the encouragement, and we're so pleased with how it came out.
Yeah.
God bless you guys. I always try to end my podcast by praying for my guests. Would you allow me to do that?
Please
yes. Do.
Oh, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today and the chance to be able to just talk to these two brothers. I'm so grateful for them. I'm so grateful for just how you've gifted both of them, gifted them both as storytellers and as artists, how you've gifted both of them to tell this story in particular. And God, we just pray that the audience would find it, and that people would, like so many others, would just fall in love with these characters. And God, we pray for the creative process and the fundraising and all the other kind of things that are involved in making the show happen. And God, we just, I pray for a blessing upon both Chris's life and Andrew's life, God, that you would protect them, you protect their families, and you protect their loved ones, and that you would look after them. We just thank you for this opportunity to be able to connect with them today. We pray this in Jesus' name, and your promises we stand. Amen. Thank you for listening to the Act One podcast. Celebrating over 20 years as the premier training program for Christians in Hollywood, Act One is a Christian community of entertainment industry professionals who train and equip storytellers to create works of truth, goodness, and beauty. The Act One program is a division of Master Media International. To financially support the mission of Act One, or to learn more about our programs, visit us online at actoneprogram.com. And to learn more about the work of Master Media, go to mastermedia.com.